Here we have another linear system in 3 variables. So what we're going to want to do is use the elimination method to solve this system. So as I'm looking at the system, I'm trying to find a good variable to eliminate, and it looks like let's look at 2 and 3. First I want to go ahead and keep everything organized and in order here. So we're going to call this equation 1. This will be equation 2. And surprise, that's equation number 3. So we'll look at equations 2 and 3 first, and my z variables, we can try to eliminate those. We could try to eliminate my y variables or my x variables. It's really kind of a 6 one half dozen the other, but I've already got my y variables with opposite signs. Let's try to do the y variables. Let's see what happens. So if I do 2 and 3, and I eliminate my y. So I'm going to write down 2x plus 2y plus z equals 3. And now my 3 is 2x minus y plus 2z equals 1. Now to get this ready to eliminate a y, I'm going to need to multiply this negative y by 2, so I'll have the same coefficient, opposite signs. It's already negative, so I don't need to mess with the positive and negative. This will give me 4x minus 2y plus 4z equals 2. And I'll just keep my second equation, number 2 here, the same. I'll get x plus 2y plus z equals 3. Now when I combine these two equations, x and 4x become 5x. Positive 2y, negative 2y make 0. Z and 4z become 5z. 3 and 2 become 5. And I'll call this equation number 4. Now I've got equation 2 and 3 in the mix here, and I've got my equation 4 out of those. I need to mix in equation 1 with this stuff, and I need to try to eliminate the same variable. 2 and 3, I'll have to multiply lots of things together, so let's go 1 and 3, and we'll eliminate y again. So now we'll use 1 and 3, eliminating the same variable, we'll eliminate y. Write down 1 and 3, just copy them as they are. 6x plus 3y plus 4z equals 3. 2x minus y plus 2z equals 1. Now, if I want to get rid of my y's, I need to multiply this by 3, and I'll have the same coefficient, opposite signs. Don't need to mess with the negative, it's already there. So this time I'll multiply it by 3. I get 6x minus 3y plus 6z equals 3. And on top here, I don't need to change anything. I can go 6x plus 3y plus 4z equals 3. When I combine these two, 6x and 6x make 12x. My 3y and negative 3y, they cancel out. 4z and 6z is 10z. And that's all going to equal 3 and 3, which is 6. This becomes equation number 5. Now, I have all three systems, or correction, I have all three equations in the system represented in these two reduced equations. So let's come to the middle now. Let's put 4 and 5 together and see what we have. 5x plus 5z equals 5. 12x plus 10z equals 6. Now, if I'm trying to get rid of one of these, let's get rid of the z. I can look at these two equations, number 4 and number 5. I can eliminate my z if I multiply 5 by negative 2. and that'll give me same coefficient, opposite signs. And I get negative 10x minus 10z equals negative 10. This number 5 equation I'll keep the same, 12x plus 10z equals 6. Negative 10 there. And now when I look at negative 10x and 12x, I'm left with a positive 2x. Negative 10z and positive 10z cancel out to 0. Positive 2x equals, let's see what happens, negative 10 and 6 gives me negative 4. I divide both sides by 2, x equals negative 2. So now I've got my first variable value. I can plug it back into one of these equations and solve for it. Let's plug it back into, which one do we want to do? That looks like 4 might be some smaller numbers to mess with. Let's plug it back into 4. You get 5 times negative 2 plus 5z equals 5. That's negative 10 plus 5z equals 5. 5z equals 15. Z equals 3. Now I've got two variables that I've solved for. I have values out of two variables. I made sure that I had all three equations in the system in these two equations when I reduced out and I canceled out the y's. I've got two values now. I can come back into my original equations and start plugging these in. Let's just go to number 1 first. 1, 6 times negative 2 plus, I don't know my y value yet, plus 4 times 3 has got to equal 3. That's a negative 12 plus 3y plus 12 equals 3. Look at that, my constants are going to cancel out. Positive 12 and negative 12, that becomes 0. I get 3y equals 3. Y equals 3, and when I divide that out, y equals 1. There's my third value right there. So it looks like I have a solution of negative 2, 1, 3. Now I want to check my solution. I'll go to the other two equations that I have. Let's go over to number 2 here. We'll plug these values in really quick. I've got negative 2 plus 2 times 1 plus 3 should equal 3. Well, negative 2 plus 2 plus 3 equals 3. My 2's cancel. I'm left with 3 equals 3. Good to go. And let's make triple sure. We'll check it in equation number 3. 2 times negative 2. Oh, no, plus minus the 1 for my y plus 2 times 3 should equal 1. That's negative 4 minus 1 plus 6 should equal 1. This becomes negative 5, and negative 5 plus 6 is 1 equals 1. And there's my solution. Now I want to go back to this step really quick. We've confirmed our solution is negative 2, 1, and 3. Let's talk about ways that we can make these problems a little bit easier if we can see it. At this step, one of the options that I had was to look at equation number 4. If I look at equation number 4, I can always modify equations if I do the same thing to both sides. Now in this case, we could have done this step using substitution if we realized that this equation is equivalent to, it's going to be equivalent to x plus z equals 1. And how did I get there? I just divided this entire equation. I divided it by 5. There was a common factor throughout. It came out with a nice, simpler equation to mess with. And then I could have done this problem with substitution. Now, it didn't really help me eliminate z any easier because I had to, if I was doing elimination, I had to make it a 10z and a negative 10z. But if I wanted to do it with substitution, I could have used this equation, and it may have made it easier to eliminate this variable in some circumstances. So always make sure you look for these steps. You don't have to find them, but it may make your life a little bit easier.